Hi, it's Hazel, and welcome to my channel, Hazel and Aka Design. This video is largely going to be the post-op update. I will, as I'm able, reply to the comments and emails and texts and so on that I've received. Your prayers, your good vibes, your well wishes obviously did the trick, because here I am. I'll state the obvious. I did survive the surgery. And I just thought that this might be the simplest and the most effective way to get the word out to as many people as possible who knew about the surgery and are, obviously wanted to know how it went. So, if you're wondering, rather than just having you watch me talk with my hands, and admire my lovely pajamas, I will flip through this. And what is it? Well, it's some kind of a coil-bound book that I clearly covered with, this must have been wrapping paper. And I guess I did this in preparation for last year's Junk Journal, July 2023. And so and that's by Meg Journals. And one of the pieces of advice that she offers is to prep your pages. So you can see here that this was obviously a page that I used. This one was not, but it was, a background had been collaged on the paper and it had been gessoed. So I'll just gradually flip through this, I guess. And why did I come across this? Because as I was doing videos to have in the slush pile and to cover my, the days I would be out of commission, I came across this when I was looking for journals, or my early journals, because I was doing some flip through videos of those. And I had totally forgotten about this. So the video I intended to do was to say, hey, obviously I'm not going to ever finish Junk Journal July 2023, but I can certainly use these base type pages as the foundation for a masterboard. And we know how I love doing masterboards. So anyway, I guess I'll just back up here so you have something to look at. Okay, so what was the surgery? I'm not going to get into the, nitty-gritty, gory details. Let's just say that as women, we know that sometimes we have pelvic floor issues. So it was in that vicinity that the issue was. You'll see that, I should have tried to wash that tape residue off. They initially tried to put the IV into this hand, but couldn't, because I have such delicate veins. I said, well, I am a delicate flower, so is it any wonder? Anyway, it's not the first time that's been a challenge for me, but anyway, I guess in the attempt to get it in, she must have gone right through, and that's why there's this little hematoma, this blood under the skin, and that bruising. So then, of course, and IVs are a real pain in the butt. So then she had to find one on this side, and I guess that was more successful. They prefer the left hand for some reason. Anyway, okay, let's back up. And if this is more detail than you care about, then you can cut out at any time, of course. Not good for the algorithms, mind you, but anyway, so I got the call on this is Friday. I think it's the 7th of June. I got the call on Tuesday saying that I had to be at the hospital by 9:15. Now, I live about an hour and a half away from the hospital, so that meant getting up early. And I said to her, well, I thought you do all the diabetics first thing in the morning. I'm not diabetic. And she didn't really have an explanation why I needed to be there that early, but it could have been worse. It could have been earlier. So the decision was that we would go to my daughter's, to Hillary's first, and then, at least they would just have one car parked. Parking is an outrageous price at hospitals, $5 an hour or $14 for the day. So naturally they opted for the day rate. Anyway, so we get there, check in. I'm just about to say, I do start to say, and I have insurance. No. I said, are you psychic? I said, I didn't even get the question out. She says, no, you can't request a private room. That changed with COVID, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we had our first laugh of the day and away we went to try to find the area that it was just an elevator ride up one floor. And yet what she said didn't make a bit of sense for us to find. Anyway, long story short, we find the area. It was the day surgery part, even though I didn't think it was day surgery since I knew I would spend at least one night there. Anyway, yes, check into the right spot, given my little stall. I don't think that's what they call them, but it reminded me of like a barn where every cow had her own stall. And because Hillary had to go to park somewhere, I was looking around trying to get some sort of, landmark. So how is she going to find us? So I discovered that I'm in stall 13. And I say to whoever's passing by, I said, I'm lucky enough to get lucky stall 13. She says, oh, I didn't even realize. She says it's just the order in which you'll be taken for surgery. And I said, you guys should actually renumber. See, even on the day of surgery, I'm still giving people advice, telling them what to do. So bossy. Anyway, I'm saying, really, you should really renumber your stuff. I says, there's never a 13th floor in a hotel, like in a hotel elevator or whatever. Although once you're onto it, you know very well if you're on floor 13. Anyway, so it gets settled. I get this ginormous lavender paper gown, and it has these sort of orifices, around, maybe 3 or 5 of those. And I realized later that reinforced area was where they hook up the blowy thing, the heater that blows warm air at the patient. Now, I've had a number of surgeries in my life, and one of the best things about them, maybe one of the few good things about surgery, is the heated blankets. And the nice thing about a blanket is that it almost serves a modified, remember when weighted blankets were all the rage? Because apparently that comforts some people and helps them fall asleep and so on. I don't like weighted blankets, but this almost felt like it would envelop you and just be like a nice warm hug. And I always thought that was for the benefit, make the patient feel all cozy. Well, it turns out that having the body pre-warmed helps with healing. So there were a few things I learned over these couple of days. Anyway, so that was the reason for that gown. And I did eventually get it when I moved to the next area. I have to say it's rather loud. There's about 3 or 4 inch. It looks almost like that dryer vent that you have, from your dryer to the outside, to the outside of the house. So it's a flexible thing like that, but it's rather noisy. And of course, they hooked mine up right near the shoulder or the armpit. So of course, then you have to kind of pull your blanket over you so that this warm air isn't blowing and drying your eyes out to the point where they feel like they're going to pop out of your head. But that, again, that's neither here nor there. Just telling you what it's like these days. So, I stayed in this first zone for a while, and I could have my people there with me. It was, everything was fine and good. she just barely finished telling me that, yeah, you probably won't go up to the next, they probably won't come for you until about 11:30, 12 o'clock. Your surgery is actually scheduled for 12:30-ish. Well, they do it. They don't go by ishes. They know to the minute. But of course, that's subject to change if the surgery before you goes longer than necessary or longer than anticipated. So she barely finishes saying that. This is not attached. And this was supposed to be pop of color was the prompt here. Anyway, she barely finishes saying that and they come to get me. So of course that's when, your loved ones have to leave and you're in it by yourself, which of course we're in everything by ourselves from the moment we're born. Just saying. So I get taken up there and I've got a very animated nurse and so on. Now I have 2 holes in my, I have 2 piercings in each ear. And one of them has a sleeper. And I thought, boy, I would sure be glad if I wouldn't have to take these things out. Because number 1, they're a pain in the butt to get in and out. And I thought that the concern with piercings, myth number 2 shattered, was that they're afraid it would get caught on something. Like if they're putting a cannula into your nose or something, or whatever else they might have to do, maybe it could get hooked on that. Well, it turns out that the reason they don't want piercings is because if they have to, and this is my layman's interpretation of what she said, she mentioned cauterizing. So I guess if there was a bleed of some sort and they had to cauterize, sometimes that arc of current can jump to metal conducts, and you end up with like a burn. So clearly that makes sense. So I don't know how the taping the earrings to my head took care of that problem. But yeah, they didn't make me take them out. And I thought, well, taping is fine. Especially since those particular holes like to grow in very quickly. I had to do a surgical scrub at home in the morning before going to the hospital. Avoid anything from the neck down, but avoid your face. Avoid your face and your privates. Leave the foam on for 5 minutes and then rinse it off. So basically at this point, that was when she got the IV going. They ask you the same questions over and over again. What's your name? Spell it. What are you here for? Blah, blah, blah. So it seemed that I was there quite a long time, and I was able to look at a clock, but things kind of, they don't stick for very long because obviously maybe my mind was on something else. But she was very animated, and we talked about different things, including the fact that she's getting married soon. And she told me some stories about her life, and it just all helped to sort of pass the time. What next? Oh, then the anesthetist came to see me. Now, during the pre-op, and I don't remember if I said this to you guys or not, but remember, how Grey's Anatomy ran for, 25, 30, 35 years? They referred to some of the cutest doctors as McDreamy, and I think there might have been a McSteamy as well. Anyway, so this guy was obviously in the McDreamy category. He said, "Oh, can I call you Hazel?" And I said, "Sure." And he says, "You can call me Matt." And I thought, so maybe they are teaching doctors to, be more human and more approachable. And I thought, oh, way to go, medical system. Anyway, very cute, very nice guy. And he had given me a couple of options for anesthetic. And I'm thinking, well, since when does the patient get to decide? And I used the line on him that I use on other medical specialties and when I'm buying technology. I always say, and these guys are always younger than I am. Some of them look like they can hardly shave, have hardly started shaving. I say to them after they're, especially with the technology, I say, so what would you sell your mother? And then they tell me. See, I'm always operating on the assumption that people love their mothers and they wouldn't steer them wrong. Anyway, he said, well, I would tell my mother that either would be fine in your condition. You don't have any of those, pre-existing conditions that could be a concern, blah, blah, blah. But you don't have to decide today. You can decide day of. So, when I was at the first point of entry, stall 13, there was a nurse there that, was doing some asking some questions and so on. I said, I had that really cute anesthesiologist. She says, which one? I says, well, he told me to call him Matt. She's, oh, we were just talking about him this morning. He's on the floor. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so shallow. We're all so shallow. Anyway, she says, well, there is another one. I says, let me guess. He has a face fit for radio. She says, yeah. Anyway, I don't know which. It turns out that there are 4 anesthetists. And the guy that I had, good Ukrainian boy from, about an hour east of, or an hour and a half east of where I live. Obviously not McDreamy, but not Uggo either. Anyway, so he really was advocating the spinal. And I said, I don't really want to hear what you guys are talking about in the operating room. I had also said that to Matt, and he said, if we're all chattering about, what we're doing this weekend and stuff like that, he says, that's good news. It's when the place goes silent that you have to be concerned. So another lesson learned. Anyway, he says, well, I can definitely give you some nice sedation so you won't hear or remember anything that's said. So I thought, okay, let's go for it. With all the surgeries, I've never had a problem with anesthetic. Like some people get sick to their stomachs and are puking afterwards and so on. Not me. So that wasn't an issue. But I did opt for the spinal. So, I see I have a pocket here. What was the prompt here? Fold out. And this one was tickets and tags. Anyway, so so we agree on that. I'm feeling confident that he's been around a time or two, and that should all be good. Eventually it's time to go in, and I am just baffled at the cast of thousands that are in there. I counted at least 8 people. I think, at least 3 of them were medical doctors, and of course there were nurses and so on. And so the surgeon, I had met her at the consult in January, and she says, do you recognize me? I said, well, not really with that goofy thing you have on your head. I said, but I'm glad it's you. I said, I just want to know, did you go to bed early, or are you feeling strong and steady and like really good? She said, I had the best sleep ever. I'm thinking, okay, good. You never want to. I did ask that of a surgeon once before. Smart-ass man, apparently. He said, no, actually, I was partying till the wee hours and, yeah, barely got up. And kidding, of course. But anyway, we had a laugh over that. And then they do what they call their little safety thing. So again, they announce I can't remember, did I have to or did they? Oh, I guess I had to say who I was again. I had to tell them what they were about to do. And then they just did some other stuff, and I was gonzo. Don't even remember how or what. The surgery had been scheduled for a couple of hours. I found out later that it went a little longer because, they needed the extra time. Because it was just sedation, when I ended up in the recovery room, I was, I think, more coherent than I would have been if it had been general anesthetic. The prompt here is layers on layers. So a lot of stamping, apparently, and vellum and so on. Anyway, creepy in the sense that I had absolutely no feeling from the waist down. Like, not that I was trying to do anything, but that was a bit creepy when I became aware of it. Anyway, I tend to have lower than average blood pressure. And of course, the whole time that you're there, I mean, from start to finish, they're taking your vitals. The oxygen saturation with the little doohickey on your finger. I didn't know that they now have these little plasticky strips that they use under your tongue to take your temperature. And of course, the dreaded blood pressure cuff. And of course, the typical position is the upper arm here. Well, that hurts like hell. So at some point, they began doing it on the forearm, which I didn't even know you could do. Like, that's what I want from now on. But anyway, they realize that my heart rate and blood pressure are dropping. And the anesthetist is there, another doctor is there, and 2 nurses are there. And he said, but you did so beautifully during the operation. Your blood pressure was right where we need it. Like, they don't really understand what's going on. And by this time, somebody's saying, you're very pale. I says, that's my cadaver color. That's my cadaver look. I don't know that they appreciated that. They don't like to think about people dying, I guess. Anyway, so they're sort of talking amongst themselves, It had nothing to do with the spinal that they had given me because I had done so well during the operation. So there had been some packing put in. So they decided that was the problem. So they started pulling out some of the packing that had been stuffed into me. And that helped. But I do have to say that it was a bit of a little concern there for a while. My heart rate dropped to 38, which is damn low. And my blood pressure, I thought they said 78, but I found out the next day that it was actually 68 over 30 something. So obviously it would explain why all of a sudden I was so cold. And because, I haven't Googled it, but I'm thinking that's when you sort of get shocky, when your blood pressure drops that much. And anyway, so they got that righted, and then, of course, just kept a good eye on it. I did have another scary low blood pressure once I was on the ward, but that only happened once, I think. So now I had the IV, I had a catheter, and I had... See, and this is the creepy part of the spinal freezing. It's like in the movies. And I would say this to them. I said, it's like in the movies when the doctor says, can you wiggle your toes? And here all of us at home watching the movie are hoping that she can wiggle her toes because otherwise it means she's paralyzed. Anyway, to me, right off the bat, it felt like my knees were bent, which they weren't. And I could only know that by looking down and seeing they weren't bent. Then I could see my toes, and I'm thinking, I should see if I could wiggle them. But of course I couldn't. That's disconcerting, let me say. And what else? Oh, so they had put on compression stockings, just from the ankle to the knee. And then and I didn't even know this existed. Usually, I've had compression stockings before, and that's to prevent blood clots because you're immobile. No, I've never had a spinal before, so I guess that they then have this machine that sort of palpates your legs to keep the blood moving the way it should. Because if you're lying there like you're dead and the blood begins pooling, that probably is when the risk for the clots rises. So one leg and then the other leg. But it's bulky. 2 more cables, you know, like, and it's a pain. But of course, you know, you can put up with just about anything when you know that there's a good reason to put up with anything. Oh, this is something that I did since I came home because I thought, oh, I can sit. I can glue stuff down. So I did these butterflies on this envelope background. So, so basically back in the room, like back in the ward, these were other backgrounds that I had prepared. Background, 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 background. Hey, nothing like a takeout menu. Background, 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 background. More backgrounds, more backgrounds. And then I did these 2 as well since I've been home. So this is a vertical one. I picked these, these daffodils because I thought they kind of went with some of the background colors that were here. And I'm not that fond of those stickers, but yet when you put them all together, and you can see there are several different sets, it looks okay. Plus, of course, as with any master board, these are just the bases. And then this one I did horizontally. And so these are basically tulips, and I just had 4 of these guys, so I put them in. Oh, I'd also done this one. And like a dummy, did this first because I liked these mums on this page. And then I did this, so maybe I'm not thinking as clearly as I think I am. How is this possible? So when I cut this up, if I cut this up, I guess I'm going to have a 2-sided tag and no space for... I mean, not the end of the world either, but now I'm aware of that. Don't do master boards back to back like that. And I think that's all I have here. Anyway, so I'll leave it on these pages. So, okay, back in the room, I'm able to, luckily no dietary things, although we did say soft when I was asked. So for my evening meal, Wednesday, I got a rice, chicken, and a chicken breast, and mixed vegetables. And I have to say that was very good. And I couldn't help but think that every time Hillary's French bulldog, Gertie, has a stomach upset, and it's happened here at the farm too, if we're looking after her, and she's puking for some reason, that I all of a sudden have to boil rice and do chicken for her. So chicken and rice, I guess, is a good thing for an upset gut, or if you want to prevent an upset gut. So the food was fine, although, of course, they didn't season anything. The rice was kind of bland, but hey. I did keep calling the hospital a bed and breakfast, and they seemed to, everyone almost without exception, snorted at the thought that they're running a bed and breakfast. They said, well, the breakfast part isn't bad, but the bed, oh my God, the bed is bad. The stretchers are not good. And in fact, my biggest pain after the surgery was from the waist to the butt cheeks. I had such a backache, and I'm thinking after the fact that it was probably because I'd been in that position, well, for essentially since about 10 in the morning. You know, the body is not intended to lie flat like that on your back. If I would have had a bolster or a wedge under my knees, that would have helped. If my useless limbs could have bent and I could have bent my knees, that would have helped. But yeah, so that was my biggest area of pain. So finally, at one point, I said to my people, I said, don't you think you guys should go? And so, of course, they pretend to be offended. And I said, well, you've been here so many hours already. I think I should probably try to sleep. Like, go, live your lives. I very much appreciated everything that they do for me and their concern and all of that. But honestly, I'm not one of those martyr types that think that people should suffer or should, I just try to be a practical person. And what is the point of making them sit there? It's not like we had such stellar conversations or anything. So I got rid of them. I was able to then turn on my side, which is my usual sleeping position, and I was able to sleep. So that helped. But again, maneuvering all those cables and tubing and whatever was a pain in the butt. So I was able to I was able to take sips of water. So then that got rid of the need for the IV. So they left the port in, but they disconnected the bag. And they kept checking, how the feeling was coming back into my legs. So at one point it was to, mid-thigh, and then it was to the knee, and then I was able to wiggle my toes. So I said, can we get rid of that? And luckily they thought it was okay that they could get rid of that. So that was a huge feeling. Catheter had to stay in. Because, of course, peeing is a big deal. And one of the criteria before I could be discharged, and I'd been warned about it Wednesday, if I wanted to be discharged Thursday, I had to be able to pass the pee test. And to some of my buds who understand my sense of humor, I said, I've been cramming and cramming for my pee test. Essentially what happens is that they put 300 mLs of liquid into my bladder, and I had to be able to, on my own, pee at least that much out, and more if there was more. And I had an hour to do it. So it was honestly like a timed final exam in high school, which meant that I had to be able to stand up and walk to the bathroom. So I was a wee bit lightheaded, but not bad. We got there. And another thing that has changed. I don't know where you are or if you've been in a hospital or whatever, but that kidney-shaped dish that always used to be stainless steel, and that would be the one you would barf in if you needed to. Well, now that and the hat, they call it a hat, that they put in the toilet to catch pee, is all it looks like the same stuff that you get your takeout fries in. That wrinkly, papery, sturdy, but still paper thingamajig. And I couldn't quite get over that. I'm thinking, how is this going to hold liquid? But I guess it does. And the beauty of that is they don't have the cost of sterilization. Mind you, it is disposable. But apparently they add some sort of a solution to it, and it decomposes just like that. So, I guess you give up one thing to get something else. But anyway, so I was able to pee 400 ml. Yay! But they don't just go by that. They then use an ultrasound to see if there's any liquid left in your bladder. So pins and needles, because if I haven't voided the whole amount, I either can't go home or I go home with a catheter. And trust me, when I got the 12-page instructions of catheters and how to use them and clean them and blah, 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 I thought I want no part of this. Anyway, so she's doing it, and she seems to have trouble finding exactly the purple square or the purple X and the green lines and the blah, blah, blah. She said, oh no, there's 200 mLs left. I said, is that even possible? And she said, yes, it is possible. I tried again, nothing. Anyway, so then, and I was going to suggest it, but I heard her talking to another nurse. I don't know if it was a shift change or whatever. She says, can you redo the ultrasound and just see, maybe there was a false positive or something. And so somebody else came and did it, and there was 0. So that essentially had passed the test. Oh, I forgot to tell you one other thing. You know how for time immemorial, women have been telling men that women don't fart? Well, the jig is up. Women do fart. Women do pass gas. And hospital people love to hear that you can do that. Peeing and passing gas are huge milestones because it means, and when they listen through to your gut with a stethoscope, that's what they're listening for too. That gurgling, burbling activity, because it means that your digestive system is still working. Because we know that, obviously getting rid of waste product, whether it's urine or feces, the systems have to be working or you're going to be a dead duck. So anyway, I was bragging about, and I passed gas too, and we get the old thumbs up and then make a note of it. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry if I've disillusioned anyone with the truth, but so with all those things clear, yes, I was able to be discharged. So I was out of there by about noon. And because I didn't have the catheter or would need to come in to have the catheter removed or the packing removed, I was able to go straight home. And I think I snoozed most of the way home. I don't really recall the trip. Had a couple of naps when I got home. And here I am 2 days after the fact. So I am going to stop there because I have sort of tired myself out with all this talking. I think I'm going to try to squeeze in another little snooze. I find it very encouraging that I seem to be able to sit here in my craft space and glue, if nothing else. Able to talk to you guys somewhat coherently, I think. So that is all good news. Now, I am, because I've had a number of surgeries in my day, and because I'm wise, I know my very first surgery, I was naive enough to believe that because I felt kind of good, that the healing process is just an upward trajectory and every day is better than the previous one. Well, no. You can go up, you can plateau, you can have a setback, and then you can go up again, and that healing is a day-to-day process. And if I'm not smart, if I overdo it, if I don't rest when I'm supposed to, it will, obviously that will lengthen the healing process. So I'm going to try to be as smart as I can about following instructions. It's funny, in the handout for the, as I was being discharged, they have a Q&A section, and it says, the question, I'm doing the inflection, will I really need 6 weeks to recover? And then the answer, yes, all caps and an exclamation mark. Yes, you do need it. And just because, the body needs to heal, and just because you have time off, in quotes, it doesn't mean that now is the time to be gardening, sweeping the kitchen, vacuuming the steps, so, You're not going to have me sorry about not being able to do housework. Let me just say that right up front. So yes, I'm going to try to be smart and let my body give me the cues. I did have painkillers prescribed, and I think, again, it's the back seems to be the worst part of the pain. But I also got a narcotic. I got tramadol, so there. I actually have some tramadol left from a previous thing, and I always like to tell them, well, if I don't use them, I can always sell them out of a trench coat, like in the, in the open market. Nobody really finds that funny either, especially with the opioid crisis that's going on out there. But no, I'm one of those people that hates taking pills. I've had to learn over the course of my lifetime that there are no medals, or you don't get a pat on the head for trying to, white knuckle through it. That pain management is part of healing, that it's important to stay ahead of the pain, because if you let it get away on you, it takes that much longer to catch up, and you might not catch up with managing it. So I'm going to, for these first few days anyway, take the pills that were prescribed, not the tramadol, because I don't feel a need for it. Yeah, just keep on keeping on. So again, thank you so much if you've sat through this whole story. I hope that you learned something, and I honestly, I hope that my story and the telling of my story, not from a victim perspective, not from a bitching and moaning perspective, not from a poor me perspective, but trying to inject and see the humor in all of this, gives you permission to look at your health situation the same way. And I understand that there are conditions that are far worse than mine, and there are some things that people will not recover from, and that it won't always be a happy ending. But I firmly believe, I believe to the core of my being, that our attitude makes a big difference. And whether this was going to be it for me or not, I would have still been thinking and talking the same way. I know it's disconcerting to my daughter when I talk like this, but I'm hoping that it also frees her up to understand that, life is life, and none of us are getting out of here alive. So the best we can do is roll with the punches, put the best possible spin on what's happening, try to, and I'm not, trust me, I'm not a martyr. I'm not trying to be the brave soul and make it all good for the people around me so that they don't worry or don't. I'm just being me. I'm just talking. I'm just calling, as a former board member, colleague of mine used to say, I'm just calling a spade a shovel. The real expression is calling a spade a spade. Anyway, so, yeah. So I hope that if there's a takeaway for you about something other than masterboards, that it be that facing the truth in a positive manner, seeing the humor in a positive, and maintaining a good attitude goes a long way in the healing process. Right up there with skilled surgeons, good pain meds, and bed rest. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.